Assalamualaikum and welcome to IB News. I am Nurul Izzati. The first subtopic for today is multi-party negotiations. A multi-party negotiation takes place when two or more parties come together with the intention of finding a solution to a problem on which they have differing points of view. Even though this negotiation is quite difficult because it involves a challenging process, it offers a solution that is more accurate than simply solving the problem on its own. There are four key challenges of multi-party negotiations, starting with dividing resources. When there is more than one person at the negotiating table, a variety of information and points of view are bound to be brought up throughout the course of the conversation. Because of this, every person has the impression that they need to make decisions that are favorable to themselves because they each believe in a unique interpretation of what fairness represents. Second is coalitions. Becoming part of coalition is a good way for a weaker party in the larger group to gain power. Within the coalition, there is typically a mix of cooperation and competition. Coalition offers members an alternative to dealing one-on-one with the different strategies within the larger group. Sometimes, it may be necessary for negotiators to communicate with another party in the presence of a third party who should not understand the message. For example, Ali and his brother Abu would like to sell the car that belonged to their father. Later, they had a conversation with Sarah, who was potentially interested in purchasing the car. While they were discussing, the two brothers decided to have a private conversation in front of Sarah about the details of the car. However, Sarah was unaware that a private conversation was taking place. This is the multiple audience problem. Third is formulating trade-off. In a multi-party negotiation, integrative trade-off may be achieved through either circular or reciprocal load rolling. Circular load rolling is a form of trade-off where each member of the group must offer concessions to other members. Eventually, they will also receive concessions from other group members on different issues. For example, during Family Day, Ayu and her family decided to give each other a gift. The giver and receiver of the gift are determined by drawing names from a box. Ideally, the gift given should be something that is appreciated by the recipient. Reciprocal trade-off, on the other hand, are usually done between two people from the same larger group. Circular trade-off are more risky than reciprocal trade-off because they involve the cooperation of more than two group members. Fourth is voting and majority rule. There are a few problems associated with this key challenge, starting with majority rule. Despite its democratic attraction, majority rule does not consider how strongly individuals feel about their preferences. It is possible that one person feels that his opinion should be accepted, but because he gets the same number of votes as the individual who does not have a strong opinion on the issue discussed, there is a possibility that his opinion is not used in resolving the issue. When compared to groups that operate under majority rule, those that negotiate using the rule of unanimous rule achieve more effective results. Next is voting paradoxes. Given a situation where Hana, Tia, and Akila disagree regarding which fast food restaurant to visit, whether KFC, McDonald's, or A&W, Tia suggests a vote between KFC and McDonald's as a means of conflict resolution. KFC wins the vote, while McDonald's is eliminated. Then, Tia suggests a group vote between KFC and A&W. A&W wins in this vote. Akila therefore concludes that they will visit A&W. However, Hana insisted on redoing the voting, beginning with McDonald's and A&W. This vote results in the elimination of A&W. McDonald's is eliminated in the next round, making KFC the winner. Akila believes that the voting process is tainted, but she is unable to provide an explanation. They are all affected by the Condorcet paradox. The Condorcet paradox is a result of group voting that demonstrates that the winners of majority rule elections depend on the voting order. The instability of voting outcomes is referred to as the impossibility theorem. Impossibility theorem is a theorem stating that the derivation of group preference from individual preference is indeterminate if certain conditions prevail. Next is strategic voting. It refers to a situation in which a negotiator deceives the other party about his or her true voting preferences in order to gain an advantage over them. For instance, Hannah could have voted strategically in the first election to ensure that her favorite fast food restaurant would not be eliminated in the first round of voting. Next, the process of reaching decisions by consensus among members of a group is known as consensus agreements. During this type of group decision making, members of the group develop and agree to support a decision that is in the best interest of the whole. A resolution that is acceptable and one that can be supported can be considered to be a consensus in the professional world, even if the resolution in question is not everyone's preferred choice. Strategies for successful multi-party negotiations. 1. Know who will be at the table and understand the interests of the constituencies they represent. 2. Manage the information and systematize proposal making. Negotiators are well advised to develop a matrix that lists each party and each issue and then record each person's preferences for each issue to find win-win agreements. 3. Brainstorm options. Group members can independently write down ideas for resolving negotiations and then later, when the group meets, they share those ideas. 4. Develop and assign process roles. Multi-party negotiations need a timekeeper, a process manager, and a recorder of information. These roles can be rotated so as not to give any member an advantage or disadvantage. 5. Stay at the table. It is unwise for group members to leave the table when all parties need to reach agreement. 6. Strive for equal participation. 7. Allow for some points of agreements, even if only on process. Failure to reach agreement on negotiation issues can make group members feel they are not making progress and that negotiations are stalemated. 8. Avoid the equal shares bias. 9. Avoid the agreement bias. 10. Avoid sequential bargaining. Groups often use sequential bargaining like discuss one issue at a time rather than simultaneous bargaining where several issues are under consideration at any given time. Now, we will be moving on to second subtopic, which is coalitions.
Thank you, Nurul Izzati. I'm Fatih Izzati. Will explain more about coalitions. Coalition face three sets of challenges, which are the formation of the coalitions, coalition maintenance, and the distribution of resources among coalition members. The formation of the coalitions must have optimal coalition size. As we know, coalition is a group of two or more people who combine their resources to influence the result of a decision in a mixed motive situation. So, the formation of the coalition should consist of at least two parties in order to accomplish the desired outcome. Coalitions are formed when parties feel that working together will help them accomplish their goals. Allying forces to strengthen the power of coalition members is a problem-solving to competitive situations in which coalition members cannot achieve desired goals alone. Coalitions form to address power imbalance among parties and increase their chances of receiving what they want. For example, a city council may deny a single homeowner's request to install a speed bump on her street. But if all of the residents in the residential area make the same request, the city council is more likely to respond. Next, trust and temptation in coalitions. Coalitions have trouble with how much members trust each other and how committed they are to the group because coalitions depend on trust between the parties. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to work with coalition parties. People need to find out what each other is good at and be willing to figure out how to work together best. People in the coalition have to be able to trust each other, so nobody will be in difficulties. According to status quo bias, when making decisions and negotiating, people tend to like the way things are now more than the changes that have been suggested. Change can be scary for many people, which may be why so many people like things to stay the same. When things change, most people see it as a loss or bad thing. People can be resistant to change because of the status quo bias, but it can also have a big impact on how they make decisions. People are more likely to choose the option that keeps things the same when they have to make an important choice. This is because a norm of a coalitional integrity influences the members. Coalitional integrity is the desire for parties to remain loyal to a coalition despite the possibility of acquiring greater resources outside of it. So, what should negotiators do? Early coalition formation is important for negotiators to avoid being left without coalition members. When creating coalitions, negotiators should also monitor their negative emotions. Usually, when people form coalitions with angry partners, they tend to make a significant concession. A concession is a deviation in an offer in the direction of the opposing party's interests, therefore reducing the expected benefits. Dividing the pie is the last key challenge of coalitions. There is no normative way to divide up resources fairly among coalition members, so it is hard to figure out how to do it. Inexperienced negotiators are more likely to accept equal division, but experienced negotiators are more likely to exploit differences in their relative negotiating power. It is easy to be a member with high power in coalitions, but the real key is to know how to act well with low power. Weakness may be a strength if you can identify and disrupt unstable coalitions. Power is a big part of putting together coalitions and deciding how to share resources among coalition members. When coalition members have different amount of power, it can affect the group. When there is an imbalance of power, group members are more likely to care about power issues because they want to protect their interests. Most of the time, what is the best for the coalition is not what is the best for the organization. For example, Lily, Leah, and Laura are the co-workers at the fashion company Minimalism. Lily is the longest-serving employee in the event management department, followed by Leah and Laura. Mr. Merkin must choose two of the three people to manage their fashion event in London. Lily believes she should be sent there since she had the greatest experience. She asked Leah to persuade Mr. Merkin that they are the worthiest employee to be sent. However, Leah is not confident in Lily since Lily's work is not as excellent as Lara's despite being the longest-serving employee. Lara also believes she and Leah are more worthy of going to London since their work has recently improved and they often get praise from Mr. Merkin. Because Leah rejected Lily's offer, Lily attempts to threaten Leah by asking Lara to join her in London. Lily may use her seniority to persuade Mr. Merkin to choose her because of her extensive experience in event management and Lara, who is highly committed to accomplish tasks. The solution for dividing the pie is as follows. The core solution is the first alternative, which it is a group of undominated alternative. If no coalition has both the power and the will to overturn it, an alternative is at the core. If one side does not agree with this result, another alternative, the Shapley model, may be used. The Shapley model determines the total payout a person might expect based on their pivotal power or capacity to turn a losing coalition into a winning coalition. It addresses the formation of a coalition in which one person begins alone and is later joined by a second and third person. Rifa's hybrid model is a hybrid model solution that computes the mean of the Shapley and core value. In both models, the share of a medium power player is the same, while the shares of high and low power player fluctuates hugely. Although several defensible methods can be used to allocate resources among coalition members, no single best way exists. Rabiatul, what do you think about the strategies for maximizing coalitional effectiveness?
Thank you, Nurfatin. I think it is a very important part of what we need to do to successfully negotiate coalitions. Now, I will tell you some interpersonal methods for successfully negotiating coalitions. Firstly, you must make your contacts early. For example, people tend to feel obligated to individual with whom they have entered into verbal or implicit commitments as a result of the commitment process. Hence, to make sure that this doesn't happen, it is important to get in touch with important people early on in the process of multi-party negotiation before they make promise to another people. Furthermore, you must also seek verbal commitments. Despite the fact that verbal agreements are not legally binding, the vast majority of individuals believe they are bound to fulfill their end of the bargain. Employers, workers, and independent contractors, for example, may find it useful to codify the parameters of their relationships in an employment contract or service agreement. And lastly, we also must use unbiased appearing rationale to divide the pie. For instance, if one or more coalition members believe that the planned division of resources is unjust, the coalition will become less stable and they will be more prone to reneging on their commitments. And there is less chance of people leaving a coalition if they think the pie has been split evenly.
Hello, there is a principal-agent relationship in negotiation. What is principal-agent relationship? The principal-agent relationship is the relationship between an individual and someone hired by the person to act on their behalf. The principal parties are the decision makers, while the agents are the people who represent the interests of the principal decision makers. Examples of agents and principal are shareholder and manager, the boss and the workers, and government and military. Both of these parties are self-interested, which means they are going to do whatever suits them best. If you want to go out on holiday, you go to the travel agent to sort out the arrangement rather than do it yourself. Let me give you an example. If you are going to Canada, you must know Canadians. So, it's challenging to plan, right? It is more convenient to go to the travel agent. The point is that these agents have specialized knowledge and it can save your time and effort. But why this relationship has an inherent danger for the principal? This is because when the incentive of two parties in a transaction are not aligned, and there is asymmetric information, the agent knows more about the situation than the principal, which will make the agent act in a way contrary to the principal's interest. In the case of the holiday, you are the principal and the travel agent is the agent. Your incentive is to go to the Canada and not waste too much money. Agent incentive might be to get as much out of you as possible, given that she has more information about travel to Canada than you do. She may deliberately make the wrong decision, act otherwise in a manner contrary to the principal's best interest, or evade the responsibilities assigned. This is called agency cost. What are the advantages of an agent in the principal-agent relationship? The advantages of an agent in the principal-agent relationship are expertise, substantive knowledge, networks and special influence, emotional detachment, ratification, and face saving. First, agents are more experienced in the negotiating process. For example, when you buy an index fund, you are the principal and the fund manager becomes your agent, because the fund manager is an expert in managing the fund and help maximize the return on your investment. Second, they may have specialized expertise in the agency's field, such as a real estate agent who knows about the right home according to your situation, connect with home inspectors, correctly prices the home as a seller, and screen potential buyer to make sure they are qualified. Third, the principal often seeks agents who already have a network of people who can help them with the negotiations. She may use her agent network to exert more influence on the negotiation or the other party, such as retaining an attorney to perform legal work. Agents are also less emotionally and tactically adaptable. This is because emotion may frequently override reasoning and lead to illogical decisions. For example, the doctor wants to provide sound medical advice but do not want to scare patients with their predictions. Fifth, the principal may assist the agent's action after the event. The principal may accept any action made by the agent outside of her specific authority if she so desires. For instance, the phone seller has limited power to offer a price reduction without the approval of the manager. Finally, the principal might sue an agent for error or omission. This permits the principal to save face in the event of unwanted decision. Saving face changes the way we behave either to avoid embarrassment or weakness. It can also change how we express our point of concern about how others might react. Then, what are the disadvantages of using an agent? The disadvantages of using an agent include shrinking zone of potential agreement ZOPA, incompatible incentive structure, loss of control, communication distortion and message turning, and agreement at any cost. Firstly, the agent will be compensated or reimbursed for their services in most cases. This siphons value away from the underlying negotiation stake. Also, an agent may not have the power to change the target or reservation point independently. As a result, the ZOPA reduces. Next, if the agent's incentive conflict with the principal's interest, principal-agent interaction are set up. The agent will get a major advantage by achieving a decision not in the principal's best interest. Furthermore, the employing agency is given the authority to act on the principal's behalf. The principal is responsible for the agent's conduct within her power. As a result, the principal loses some influence over the bargaining process. Moreover, the agent may not clearly understand the principal's goals. During negotiations, an agent's delivery of a message may not entirely match the principal's message. Last but not least, the agent may be motivated by an irrational desire to obtain an agreement at any cost. When the agent's purpose and goals are to achieve an agreement with the other party, the agent may be to focus on that goal rather than pursue a more beneficial partner.
Did you guys know about the strategies for working effectively with agents? Yes, exactly. Firstly, you need to shop around. Ask the agent how he or she will be able to help you. Ask the agent what you should do. When you meet with an agent, ask them about your relationship and if any responsibilities you have to each other. For instance, a teacher joined an insurance takaful agency through his member Kim. Meanwhile, Takaful's agency did not approve him as their official agent, which is there to represent the insurance agent's interest. Hence, in this case, negotiation training and methods can be learned by asking your agents. The second strategy for working effectively with agents is you must know your partner before meeting with your agent. Before you meet with your agent, do some research about him or her. Check to see if you have a backup plan. You should write down the questions that you can ask your agent to test your accuracy of your partner. But don't ever tell your agent what your partner is either. For example, the agent is asking about the vacation trip with his customer, which the customer replied that she wanted to know what other customers paid for that type of vacation. Now, let's talk about the third strategy, which is communicate your interest to your agent without giving away your partner. One of the most difficult challenges for a negotiator is to express his or her interests, goal, and preferences without revealing his or her partner. The best way to help your agent is to list your top priorities and the best option for achieving those priorities. Expect your agent to inquire about your partner. For instance, this situation is between the car agent and a potential buyer. The potential buyer said that she doesn't know how useful it is to tell the car agent how much she willing to pay for the car that the agent showed her. She wants an 8-seater car, preferably an MPV, for her big family, and that she will pay more for these than for a standard 5-seater sedan car or a car with updated modern technology. She also said early that she was prepared to spend on the car that the agent showed her that day. The last strategy that you need to know, which is discuss ratification with your agent. When you work with an agent, you are the one who has the power to make a certain concession or agreement. Or in other words, your agent can't lower or raise your offer without your permission. Hello and welcome back to IB News. We will continue to the next subtopic with Fikran live from Bandung, Indonesia.
Thank you, Dagatul from Studio IB News. I am Fikran Zani will explain about constituent relationship. A constituent is a person or a group who is on the same side of the negotiating party as the lead negotiator but who is an independent effect on the outcome through the principal negotiator or to the whom the principal negotiator is accountable. When a negotiating party is rooted inside an organization, a number of the other participants may have an indirect interest in the outcome and may affect the negotiation process. Constituent can be employed to provide pressure to the opposing party. So what is the challenge for constituent relationship? The first challenge is behind the table barrier. As negotiator, they have difficulty synchronizing internal with exterior negotiation. In other words, identifying individual within a component group is challenging. Constituents may have a variety of interests, but there is usually one or more significant interests that bring them together behind the principle. So, behind the table barrier refer to how negotiator must deal to their own internal constituent as well as the other party. Second challenge is accountability. The constituents do not have to join the bargaining table because the negotiators are the ones who are accountable for making higher demand and less compromise at the primary table. The second table is where the negotiators share with their constituents. The second table can affect the primary table if the group representatives are not given the power to enact agreement. The third challenge is conflict of interest. It is important to understand the relationship negotiators share across the bargaining table and the hidden table of constituent relationship. A principal must avoid potential conflict of interest while dealing with constituent who has a wide range of interests. Given the system of the negotiation, this can be extremely difficult if impossible. Next topic is strategy for improving constituent relationship. First strategy is communicate with your constituent. As representative, we must consider not just our constituent position but also their interests. Furthermore, constituents who feel hurt are less likely to take drastic measures. To demonstrate their ability, many representatives act too soon. That is, before they comprehend their constituency through demand. For example, even though the majority of people advocate cooperative behavior, constituency representatives automatically give greater weight to the hawkish than dovish statement. Second strategy is do not expect homogeneity of constituent views. Constituencies are often composed of individuals and subgroups with different needs and interests. Third strategy is educate your constituent on your role and your limitation. Constituents, like the rest of us, suffer from egocentric prejudice and expect you to educate the other side with your position. Early on in the process, it is critical to your constituent to clearly define your function, set reasonable goals for yourself, share all conceivable outcomes with your constituent, not just the positive one. The last strategy is help your constituent do horizontal thinking. Horizontal thinking involves generating prediction about what will happen in the future. people have a hard time seeing future events, tend to underestimate or overestimate the length of the future emotional state, and fail to account for possible positive and negative conditions. So, help your constituent develop solid partner and realistic goal by engaging in horizontal thinking. My name is Muhammad Fikran from Bandung, Indonesia.
Alright, thank you Fikran from Bandung, Indonesia. I am Nur Amira Farhana and I will talk about team negotiation. What is team negotiation? Team negotiation is the participation of at least one team rather than a single negotiator at the bargaining table, which improves the potential of integrative agreements. Negotiation teams are commonly employed to negotiate on behalf of corporations, but little is known about how they overcome the challenges given by reading team dynamics to develop an effective across-the-table team bargaining strategy. For example, a husband and wife negotiate over the price of a new house with a salesperson. Why are teams so effective? Because of the expanded size of the bargaining pie and higher information flow among negotiating parties, increased information exchange lead to improved judgment accuracy regarding parties' interests. However, there are several challenges in team negotiation. First of all is selecting your teammates, which there are three types. First, negotiation expertise. A smart negotiator can create an integrated solution to a complicated conflict scenario. Besides, can minimize preparation, ensure the team avoids the four major negotiating traps, which is leaving money on the table, settling for very little, walking away from the table, settling for terms that are worse than your best alternative, and initiates a creative problem-solving process. Second type is technical expertise. Having someone with technical expertise in the topic of interest is advantageous. For example, when purchasing a home, it is advantageous to have someone skilled in architecture, plumbing, electrical, and so on. Next is interpersonal skills. The skills to build relationship, communicate effectively, and convert a power or right-based argument to one based on interest. In addition, how many on the team is another challenge in team negotiation. 2 or 3 heads are preferable to one, but at some point, the compliance pressure increases with group size reaching at around 5 and then becoming horizontal. Coordination issues become more prevalent as the team expands in size. Next is communication on the team. Communication is key, and communication or information sharing is enhanced when members are known or have a connection. Next, team cohesion refers to strength of positive relations in a group, the sum of pressures acting to keep individuals in the group, and the result of all forces acting on members to remain in a group. Cohesive groups perform better than less cohesive groups. Lastly, information processing. It is more effective for each team members to be in charge of a specific piece of information so that no one person is overloaded by too much data. However, when storage capacity is reduced, the chances of successfully finding the needed information decrease. Furthermore, information supplied only by a section of a group's member is less likely to be considered and discussed. They are affected by the common information bias. Members of different groups do not have access to the same facts and informations. People rely on others to provide them with information. By distributing work among team members, teams can become more efficient. However, there are more strategies for improving teams' negotiations. First, set goals and strategy alignment. It is important that team members share similar objectives and interests. The greater the amount of team identifications, the less tasks and relationship conflicts is in teams. For example, high-trust top management teams are more likely to help build trust and collaborate than low-trust teams. Next is prepare together. Everyone must participate and take advantage of the opportunity because team preparation is so important that we create a worksheet for efficient team preparations. A team that prepares everything together will perform better than who prepared alone. Besides, Plan schedule breaks is another way to improve. Schedule gaps in your discussion to allow members of your team to meet privately. Many teams spend too much time in private session and just enough time at the table. This is ultimately ineffective for negotiations. Therefore, make sure you plan breaks in your discussion to allow team members to speak individually. Also, avoid spending too much time in private meetings since this may result in time limitation at the negotiation table. Last but not least, assess accountability, which is examine the extent to which team's members are accountable to others outside of the team. As we know, working in team are much better than you are working alone. When we will be in the group, we will know what kind of scope we need to put more effort, discuss among us when we want to make it work. This is what happened with negotiations. We need to share one goals and objective when dealing with the other party. From that, we can easily get a deal with another party. So that's all from me. Now we will continue with Syed Haris at the studio. Kamsahamnida.
Thank you, Nurul Amira from Korea. Before we end our news, I will share about the last subtopic, intergroup negotiation. What is intergroup negotiation? Intergroup negotiation are where individuals who represent different social groups often negotiate with two or more members of other groups.
Two teams are negotiating an agreement. One team is selling a bundle of products and services, while the other team is buying them. The buyers have narrowed down to two suppliers which they are negotiating with today, and another supplier who offers the most sold product in the market. They just finished their negotiation with the number one supplier who bought their executive with them for the meeting.
Thank you for inviting us here today. We appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today and hope to reach a win-win settlement before we leave.
We will see what we can work out. Our company have been in this industry for more than 100 years. To increase our value for our clients, we would like to partner up with company like yours to save energy and minimize overall lifestyle costs.
We think that we should choose the company that has the best overall product and service. Your competition has made a very good offer. Why should we do business with you?
That is a very good question. Before I answer it, can you please share with us why you think that they offer the best bundle of products and services?
Well, they have a large installed base of product locally, a good service engineer located about 10 kilometers from here, and the product they offer has been on the market for 5 years, and their price is better than yours.
Are you mainly interested in older products with a large installed base or in products that offer the advantage of newer proven technology that builds on over 50 years of success?
Of course, we want the most reliable product we can buy, and if there is a problem, we want a company that will come immediately to get us back up and running.
So, is it fair to say you want the best quality as measured by performance and reliability at the best overall price?
Yes, that is a good way to put it, with the right level of cost.
It sounds like the total cost of ownership is important. Will that be correct?
Yes, that sounds right.
Let's look at total cost then. Our products are improved versions of products that we started to develop over 20 years ago. So, our cost for the products is 300,000 ringgit. The installation and the startup costs are approximately 30,000 ringgit, and the operating costs are expected to be about 50% lower than your current cost, saving you approximately 75,000 ringgit per year with the extra incentive from the utility company of 10,000 per year to install these devices, and with an expected life of 6 years. You will pay for this in under 4 years. Our price includes annual service checkups and annual software updates. How does this sound?
When you break it down like that, it sounds good. The price for the product is similar, but the savings sounds better with your products.
As the manager of production in this company, I still think that going with number one is better. they have more units installed and a bigger service network. Plus, their executive flew from their headquarters to show their commitment to this project.
Regrettably, I have to disagree with you. As the finance manager for this firm, I believe that the previous company expended too much energy on manufacturing units, resulting in excessive expenses for us.
Our company can only offer the most recent state-of-the-art product, and we are local. So, when you need help, you call me and I will personally take care of your needs. We didn't bring in corporate because they support us. No need to call them if there is a problem.
The same goes with our service. You don't call a headquarters base or overseas based customer service center. You call a neighbor who can get here in 15 to 20 minutes typically.
As for the financial costs, I believe that with our cost-effective software, our company makes sure that our clients will be provided with the best yet cost-effective service.
Spoke like a financial manager yourself.
Technically, I am.
I like the sounds of all of this, but do you really think that you can make sure your service will be able to sustain the plants from breaking down again?
As for our services, we assure you that our work has been the company's most favorable accomplishment in years. We can guarantee that you will be satisfied with our services.
We work hard to build on our past successes to ensure you receive the full value of installation, and we are happy to let you contact any of our previous customers with similar products and applications.
Okay, that sounds good. Can you give me a list of 3 or 4 certified customers? I especially want to know about your service.
Yes, of course. I will call you back in 1 hour with the names and telephone numbers of at least 3 contacts.
Great! Thank you for coming in.
Our pleasure.
Now I'm going to explain about the challenges of intergroup negotiation. First, share versus individual identity. Negotiation among individuals represent different social groups are less mutual beneficial than negotiation among individuals who perceive themselves as belonging to a larger social organization. Next, in-group bias. In-group bias, or also known as in-group favorism, is the tendency for people to give preferential treatment to others who belong to the same group that they do. Last, extremism. People who are involved in conflicts sometimes do not have clear knowledge of their opponent's points of view and often exaggerate their opponent's position in a manner that fits the idea of conflict. Next, strategy for optimizing intergroup negotiation. First, separate conflict of interest from symbolic conflict. Many conflicts between groups do not have their roots in resource scarcity, but rather in fundamental difference in values. Second, search for common identity. Common identity between buyer A and seller B has made the conflict of negotiation decrease dramatically, as both of the parties cooperates on focusing on the collective rather than their group identities. Third, avoid the outgroup homogeneity bias. Supposedly both of the buyers are male and the sellers are female. The sellers did make an excellent job in brushing off buyers B comment regarding their work ethic. The seller managed to avoid a homogeneity comments toward the buyer as she proceeded toward the negotiation. Last but not least, contact. The mere contact strategy is based on principle that greater contact among members of diverse group increase cooperation among group members. For example, equal status. Many stereotypes of outgroups comprise belief that the inferior ability of outgroup members to perform various tasks. To conclude, intergroup negotiation may or may not become an everyday life occurrence. Hence, in order to avoid conflict, negotiator must first acknowledge these strategies. I am Saizan Warid. Thank you for watching.